Welcome back, thrill seekers. As we all know, the history of insane asylums is plagued with terror and abuse. A multitude of asylum and psychiatric patients have lost their lives, dignity, and maybe even what was left of their minds as a result of cruel and overcrowded confinement. Moreover, the treatment of mental illness in the past often involved methods worth of being in a horror movie. It's no wonder that most of the creepy abandoned buildings that once housed hundreds of mental patients now inspire many ghost stories and are home to continuous paranormal activity. Now, lock the doors, turn the lights off, and let's explore some of the most haunted institutions that can be found around the world. 1. Norwich State Hospital for the mentally insane. It is located in Preston, Connecticut, and has a reputation of being a very haunted building. Built in 1904, the hospital housed patients suffering from everything from mental illness and tuberculosis to chemical dependency and violent tendencies. Up until 1971, the hospital housed and treated the very worst criminally insane patients that Connecticut had to offer. The majority of murderers, rapists, and violent criminals that successfully copped an insanity plea found themselves committed to the infamous Salmon Hall, the asylum's maximum security building. So many people lived and died within these walls that even skeptics would admit there could be spirits here. Underground tunnels allowed patients to be transported from building to building. Paranormal investigators reported a great deal of ghostly activity throughout the facility, particularly in these tunnels. The first documented tragedy to occur at the asylum was the suicide of a patient. Edward K. Arvine, a lawyer, had voluntarily admitted himself as a sufferer of melancholia. In December of 1914, he hung himself in his room with an improvised rope of torn bedclothes attached to an iron grating. His death would be but the first of many tragedies at the institution. An explosion of a hot water heater in 1919 killed 2 employees, Teamster Fred Ladd and night attendant Thomas Duggan. Hospital cook Fred Smith, while crossing the road, was struck and killed in 1925 by an automobile driven by Robert Anderson, a supervisor at the nearby tuberculosis sanatorium. Annie Prudenthal, a trained nurse and former patient at the hospital, killed herself with a knife at her home in 1930 after having been discharged from the Norwich Hospital only a few days before. As far as paranormal activity people have encountered and reported hearing blood-curtailing screams, both human and inhuman, the voices of children, physical movement of artifacts like wheelchairs and gurneys, moaning, footsteps, and a torrent of other ghostly sounds. Human faces appearing out of the shattered windows within the dilapidated building have also been encountered, along with strange lights, shadow figures, and ghostly mists. 2. Pennhurst Asylum in Pennsylvania was opened in the early 20th century as a home for mentally disabled children. It was overcrowded, scantily staffed, and poorly funded by the government, which led to overworked and desperate staff members practicing cruel punishments. Children were drugged, chained to their beds, and isolated for extended amounts of time. A reporter revealed the horrors of the asylum in 1968, and it was shut down a few years later. Some of Pennhurst's alleged abuses include chaining patients to its walls, strapping adult patients into children's cribs for days on end, and even blatant murder of problematic patients. Naturally, as with any such institution with a sordid history of human suffering, violence, and death, Pennhurst is not without its share of ghostly tales. Pennhurst is allegedly so haunted, in fact, that its paranormal presences have spawned a spectral cottage industry, ghost hunting on the grounds of the old asylum. Many high-profile paranormal investigations have taken place at Pennhurst, and almost everyone has left with at least one chilling experience. Some reports include the sound of footsteps, empty rooms emitting piercing screams, and slamming doors. Investigators of the property have experienced negative paranormal activity that may be linked to poltergeists, such as being touched or shoved and having objects thrown at them. One investigator was even scratched by an entity. Some witnesses have even reported the apparition of a little girl roaming around the campus, looking perplexed and a bit lost. The sound of children playing and crying is also a common occurrence. As of 2010, one building was partially reopened as the Pennhurst Asylum Haunted House. Some visitors claim to hear voices, shrieks, and murmurs of pain from former residents and inmates of the facility. The hauntings are terrifying for multiple reasons. Aside from the typical fear of the paranormal, the ghosts of Pennhurst serve as a collective reminder of just how cruel society can be towards its own members. 3. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky, was constructed in 1910 for the treatment of people with tuberculosis. Over the span of its operating years, around 63,000 patients perished inside of Waverly Hills. This sanatorium also has a special tunnel that was built for the express purpose of moving materials, like dead bodies, out of the building and down the hill it sits atop. Today, the hospital is briefly known for its primary purpose in the past, but made a great name for being haunted. Ghost stories began to circulate, like the little girl who was seen running up and down the third-floor solarium, the little boy Timmy who was spotted with a leather ball, the hearse that appeared in the back of the building dropping off coffins, the woman with the bleeding wrists who cried for help, and a man in a white coat who has been seen walking towards the kitchen and the smell of cooking food that sometimes wafts through the room. Visitors told of banging doors, lights in the windows when there should have been none, mysterious sounds and eerie footsteps in the hallways and empty rooms. Apart from these unnamed apparitions, the tales involving the 5th floor of the building are the most widely reported. Stories say that in 1928, the head nurse was found dead in room 502. She allegedly committed suicide by hanging herself from an exposed pipe or light fixture. She was 29 years old at the time of her death and supposedly devastated, pregnant, but unmarried. Her depression over the situation led her to take her own life. It's unknown how long she may have been hanging in this room before her body was discovered, and this would not be the only tragedy to occur in this room. Another creepy legend involves another nurse who worked in room 502, again, and was said to have jumped over the window 4 years later. No one knows the exact reason why she would have done this, but many speculated that she might have been pushed over the edge. There are no records to indicate this, but rumors continue to persist. Regardless of the tale, many Waverly visitors are convinced that an anguished entity lurks in room 502. 4. The Beechworth Lunatic Asylum in Victoria, Australia, dates back to 1867. Bone-chilling sightings, horrid smells of rotting flesh, and a history to induce nightmares in even the most seasoned lovers of spook. The Beechworth Lunatic Asylum has the macabre reputation of one of the most haunted sites in Australia, and with the knowledge that very few of its patients walked out of the institution alive from 1867-1995, coupled with several modern-day accounts of bizarre and unexplainable figures walking its derelict halls, it's easy to see why. One of the more frequently seen ghosts is believed to be that of Matron Sharp. She has been seen walking into classrooms and former dorm areas, and she has been known to glide down a granite staircase on the premises. Legend has it that Sharp was uncharacteristically compassionate toward patients at Beachworth, and even after her passing, she could be spotted giving them comfort. Reportedly, nurses would report seeing the matron sitting with patients who were due to have electroshock treatment. Those who say they've witnessed this say the room was icy cold, but her presence was comforting. Another ghost who haunts Beechworth is Tommy Kennedy, a patient who was eventually given a kitchen hand position. Tommy perished in the kitchen, which is now a space called the Bijou Theater. People claim to feel someone pulling their clothes or poking their ribs within this theater, and Tommy is believed to be the culprit. A more frightening haunt is that of a patient who disappeared and was found several weeks later in a tree. Max, the resident dog at the time, was discovered chewing on a leg near the entrance to the grounds. It was here that the lost patient was found, decomposed so badly that his leg had fallen off. The ghost of this patient is known to be seen haunting the asylum entrance early in the morning. Those who live nearby have also supposedly have seen the ghost of a man wearing a green woolen jacket wandering around the gardens. This is understood to be Arthur, a man who worked the garden for many years, earning 10 shillings a week. 5. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in Weston, West Virginia, admitted its first patients in 1864. The asylum considered shock treatment and cage confinement to be normal practices. Ice pick lobotomies, which involved a pronged device being shoved through the eye socket and into the brain, were also a preferred method of treatment at the asylum. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum is probably one of the most haunted places in America. The TV show Ghost Hunters in 2008 and Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures in 2009 have claimed that the asylum is not for the faint of heart and have rightfully dubbed it one of the scariest places on Earth. Visitors report feeling an overwhelming sense of suffering in the place, as well as seeing apparitions. One ghostly resident is named Ruth. She is known for attacking visitors. Screams are often heard from the electroshock chambers. One building manager reporting seeing 40 doors to patient quarters slam shut simultaneously. The sounds of squeaking, rolling gurneys can be heard throughout the hallways. Reports of screams and ominous voices yelling warnings and such can be heard throughout the facility. Full-body apparitions of patients, a nurse, and even a Civil War soldier named Jacob can be seen in certain hallways roaming aimlessly along a path that no one seems to know. The most famous ghost of the asylum is a young girl named Lily. She politely makes herself known to people by interacting with several toys in a paint-peeled room specifically dedicated to her. However, Lily isn't the only child ghost at Trans-Allegheny. There have been many reports of children haunting the upper floors, trailing behind people around the building, and sometimes even following them home. The current owners have embraced the estate's reputation and host regular ghost tours and other paranormal-themed events. As we draw the curtains on our eerie journey through the most haunted insane asylums on Earth, it's clear that the shadows of the past linger much longer than we might expect. These asylums, with their dark histories and chilling tales, remind us of the fine line between sanity and madness, and how easily one can slip into the abyss. They stand as monuments to human suffering and a testament to the spirits that, according to many, still roam their halls. For those brave enough to explore these haunted halls, remember, it's not just about the thrill or the chill down your spine. It's a journey into history, understanding the stories of those who once lived there, and perhaps, in some small way, acknowledging their existence and experiences. If you decide to visit any of these places, don't forget to take pictures and tell us your experiences. Thank you for joining us on this chilling adventure on the Dark World Hub. If you've enjoyed this journey into the heart of darkness, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more spine-tingling stories and mysterious lists that unravel the fabric of reality. Until next time, keep the lights on and never stop exploring the mysteries that lie in the shadows.